Valley State Prison, Fulbag, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Hello.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Hi, Aaron, how you doing? I'm okay, how are you?
Oh, I can't complain. I'm not in prison.
Good. Now, this is the first time I've talked to you since I've seen your picture, so I'm able to put a face to the voice.
Oh, I don't even know what picture you got.
Just one off the stuff that Rudy puts out there again.
Oh, okay.
Where you guys are sitting in a radio, I guess in a booth on the radio, doing the radio thing?
Oh, maybe sitting in front of the Texas flag, probably.
It looks like he's speaking into a microphone, or he has his equipment around or something like that.
Okay, sounds good.
Doing a radio thing?
Oh, yeah, could be. Rudy, it's Lazor.
Oh.
Rudy's lifting weights. Here he is right here. He's coming.
All right. Okay.
Mr. Lazor, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Rudy, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. You guys are probably gone taking a break, a much-deserved break on Labor Day, I would assume. I was kind of wanting to get through because Labor Day is the big day in my case. I've talked about it a little bit, but I kind of wanted to, on that date, get the information across that they used Labor Day in 1983 to send me to prison by a bunch of fraud and falsehoods that I'll explain in more detail on this call. If I haven't already explained them in that greater detail in the past. I know I've breezed over it in the past, but I don't think I explained it.
I don't recall you going over the details, and I would look forward to hearing that. Just to let you know, we did a radio program on Labor Day on Gary Michael Northington and Richard Taus. Each of those individuals have spent over 30 years in prison as innocent men as well. So, but anyway, I definitely want to hear the Labor Day details.
Well, Richard Taus' name I remember from a lot of years ago, but the other one, who is the other one?
Gary Michael Northington. He wrote a book called Satanic Deception. He was exposing satanic ritual abuse, the Franklin cover-up, John DeCamp. People were, performing child sex auctions and things like that, and he got charged with conspiracy to murder. There's no victim, and he was exposing that, and they stuck him in prison. He's been there, I think, for 31 years.
Is that John Vandekamp or a different John?
I thought it was just John DeCamp. He wrote a book called Franklin Cover-Up. Plus, there's a video documentary about the Larry King, not to be confused with the CNN host Larry King, but there was a politician or a head of a bank, and he was, getting politicians, in bed with these little kids, taking pictures of them, and then he was using that to, hold over them to make them do what he wanted them to do.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just thinking of the famous family name. It may be a totally different thing. I wanted to mention before I get into the Labor Day thing, on this paperwork that I got sent to me from that place in Florida, in Hale, I think it's Hale, Florida. You have this wonderful list of all the stuff that you have out there on the internet. I'm just wondering. The one thing I'm looking at that's about maybe 10 from the bottom, from the end of the list, is Innocence Matters, 12018 edited PDF. I'm wondering if we should keep that up or if we should remove it. The reason why is because, as it turned out, that particular organization does not take any cases unless the person was convicted in Los Angeles County, which I was not. So I kind of think anything that's a distraction or that takes up any space that isn't relevant to my situation is probably something we don't want out there. On the other hand, if it's a letter from you or me or one of us that has important information about, explaining about how I got railroaded or something, then we might want it out there. So which do you happen to know off the top of your head what the content of that is?
Yeah, I just brought it up. Basically, it's a letter.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It's a letter from your friend Ken Massat. It was written on July the 20th, 2018. It says, "Greetings.
Oh, okay.
This is an appeal for your support to reverse a most serious case of injustice." So Yep.
See you around. Yeah.
So this is a letter. This is a letter from Ken Massat, your friend, to the organization Innocence Matters to try to get them to look at your case.
The only way we should leave it up there is maybe if you could do just like a quick little note with it, maybe at the top before somebody starts reading it, saying, as it turned out, we learned from the response to this that this organization does not take any cases other than out of Santa Clara County. So this is not something we want people to write. We don't want to waste that organization's time, nor do we want to waste anybody's time writing a letter. But at the same time, if there's good information in Ken Massat's letter about what had been put through, then we're leaving it up for that purpose only. Can we do a little?
Well, there's no way on that particular. It's just a file section. There's no way for me to put a detailed note. I could either put something to the right of it. I could simply put. It's not applicable to, I could either take it down or try to somehow edit what Ken Massat put up there and just put, what you just said earlier. I could put a little note inside the document itself.
I'll tell you what, I'll leave it up to you. Your judgment is very good. I would have no problem if you removing it, deleting it.
Okay.
But if you think it has valuable information and you want to leave it up there with some kind of thing you said you could put over on the right-hand side or whatever, go ahead and do it. I'll leave it up to your judgment.
Okay, very good.
But the main thing is we want, if it is kept up there, the main thing is we want people to know don't waste their time writing that organization because we don't want to frustrate them with a bunch of letters after they've already told us that they're not applicable to me, and we don't want to waste people's time with the organization.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, very good, very good.
Let me get into what the Labor Day vacation issue is, so we can title this basic subject Labor Day vacation. Somebody asked me, I don't know the guy's name. Excuse the interruption.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
Phone here, just getting on the show. What happened is my shooting event happened in January, on January 10th of 1983. They arrested me at that time, threw me in jail for 10 days. I bailed out, and I was out on bail throughout the whole process until the day the jury said guilty. Every state that I know of, and in particularly California, has a speedy trial statute in addition to the United States Constitution and every state constitution guaranteeing a speedy trial. Now, the statute is what defines what does that mean. In our state, I don't recall the exact amount of time, but it's a very short period of time. It might be a couple of months or less than a couple of months that the district attorney is required to bring charges and bring our case to trial, actually bring it to trial after being charged, or the case has to be dismissed. I think they can refile it in most cases, but it has to be based on new evidence. So what they did with that is, as I've said many times, Wesley James Schroeder, the scoundrel attorney that I had hired, worked with the DA every step of the way to do everything against me that's imaginable. And one of the things he did was he kept saying, he had 3 or 4 favorite sayings. One was "so stipulate," quote unquote. So everything the DA always asked for, he would say so stipulate," to give him what he wanted before the judge. One of his other favorite sayings is, "I don't ever want to rock the boat. Don't rock the boat, don't rock the boat, don't rock the boat," with the DA, meaning when the DA asks for something, however ridiculous as it is, Wesley Schroeder's policy was, I'm going to give it to him, except in maybe the rarest of instances. And he said, that's my style. He kept saying, that's my style. That's the way I do my thing as one of the top murder attorney specialist attorneys in the country, which was a total lie.
Yeah.
So one of the things he did in terms of Labor Day vacation was he just let the DA have all the extra months of time he wanted. So it was roughly 8 months until they brought my case to trial, which violated the speedy trial statutes and constitutional amendment, constitutional provisions and all that. So I could have had the case dismissed had I had a decent attorney, or if I had no attorney, just did it myself. I could have the case thrown out a long time earlier and maybe not even refiled, based on the self-defense evidence. But because of Schroeder letting him drag that out, he admitted he was doing it so the DA could put together their case. So they admitted they didn't have a case until they were able to finagle all the stuff. So the extra 6 or 7 months that Schroeder gave to the DA by stipulating to do it, by making an agreement, a contract against my wishes, allowed them all the time they needed to do all those corruptions of evidence, the planting of evidence, the framing me with all the different destruction of evidence, manufacturing evidence, and so forth. So further on, when we get into the trial, the DA made sure, this is a scam that I've seen written up in other books, and he's not the only DA that's done this. A lot of DAs are trained to do this if they're scam artists. They'll actually deliberately delay a trial until it's a few weeks before a holiday where they know a lot of people go on vacations. So in this case, they put it several weeks before, just the trial to start several weeks before the Labor Days, because they also, I can't prove this except by statistics. I don't think any statistic would ever come out any different than showing that the jury panels were being screened.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Screened, and only jurors who had Labor Day vacations were put on the jury, in the jury pool. So we had two different jury pools, about 100 people altogether, 100 some potential jurors altogether, before Schroeder put together the 12 jurors that were selected and two alternate jurors. Every single one of them, except I believe one, had Labor Day vacations, and the earliest ones, those people had to leave by September 1st. They had flights, some of them as far away as Ireland. I think some of them as far away as Australia. These flights were booked, and we got all this information during the voir dire, the jury selection. Some of them were booked over a year ahead of time and paid over a year in advance. There's nothing in the world that would have caused those jurors to cancel those arrangements, because they were meeting family in these various countries, other countries. So the jurors were locked in. They had to have their verdict in by September 1st in order for the first jurors to go. And all the other jurors, except maybe the one, also had Labor Day vacations on September 2nd. They had to leave on September 3rd. So it was a scam. So once the DA got Schroeder to agree to stipulate to, okay, we will agree that the trial will be done by September 1, 1983, which is crazy to do. You don't know what's going to happen in a trial in the first few days, first few weeks. You should never stipulate to an absolute end date of a trial. That in itself is beyond belief that any attorney would do that. So he did that, and by doing that, the DA then dragged on all kind of nonsense and irrelevant stuff, dragged on, and even Schroeder even took a couple of days off to have some kind of reunion with his wife for their anniversary or something like that, to also put it so that by the time the defense got their time to start putting on a defense, we only had like a day and a half. It could have been up to 2.5 days of trial, but a day and a half to 2.5 days of trial. And we needed probably 6 or 8 days to just counter all the lies and the fraud that the DA put forth. So the whole thing was a scam. So what happened is, on August 31st, the jurors, they went into their deliberations, and they acquitted me of first-degree murder. When they came back the next morning, as the heat was on and they were just really rambunctious to get up to their Labor Day vacations, they found me guilty of second-degree murder. Had they not been in that time jam and been so focused on the Labor Day vacations, I don't doubt that it's probably close to a certainty, or at least a high probability, that they would have acquitted me of second-degree murder as well, and maybe convicted me of manslaughter with all the fraud that was put in the trial. And if that would have happened, I'd have been home after about 3 years. That's all the manslaughter time was with half-time credits. It was about 3 years, or if it was involuntary manslaughter.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Would have been 2 to 2.5 years. They weren't even given the instructions on the manslaughter, though, as I talked about in another conversation. So anyway, there's the scam. There's how they ran it. So now, and ever since then, in the appellate courts are always saying, well, the jurors only deliberated 5 hours, so obviously they really thought you were guilty. There was no close call here. But that's nonsense, because had they not been put in a time jam, it might have been 5 or 6 days of deliberations, for all we know. It might have been 30 or 80 hours.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
I find that absolutely fascinating. I mean, that's just absolutely how they.
One of the.
Yep. Did you get Miracle in Atlanta?
Many scams. I mean,
Did you get Miracle in Atlanta?
No, I haven't. No, I got Miracle on Main Street, and I already got the I Rode with Tupper book and the other One in a Million. I already got those before you had said you were sending these.
Okay, you should get Miracle in Atlanta very, very soon. Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you. I appreciate that.